Good afternoon, Gardenside. We wanted to take a minute to say hello since it's been a few weeks since we've had church. But for these past 2 weeks, it seems like every other comment I hear is what is going on with the weather? And it's a legitimate question. And who do we believe? The local TV channels or the National Weather Service or NOAA Radio? And who's going to be right? Every one of them forecasting something different. And then to experience rain and snow, sleet, freezing rain, thunder, snow, and downright ice. Temperatures going up and down like a yo-yo, freezing to sub-freezing, and then to above normal temperatures again, and then back to zero. Oh, and don't forget the wind chill factor. The most recent storm sweeping across the nation, north, south, east, and west, coming from every direction at once. And the storm is being dubbed as the storm of the century. Why? What is going on with the weather? And it seems to be getting worse and worse every year. In the winter of 2011, we didn't miss a single Sunday in January, but we missed 3 Wednesday nights in February. In 2022, we missed 1 Sunday and 2 Wednesday nights. In 2023, we missed 1 Sunday in January for snow and 1 Wednesday in March for windstorms that took down power lines. In 2024, we missed 2 Sundays and 1 Wednesday night in January. In 2025, we missed 1 Sunday and 2 Wednesday nights in January and 2 Wednesday nights in February. And already in 2026, we have missed 1 Sunday and 2 Wednesday nights in January and 1 Sunday and 1 Wednesday night in February. And this coming Sunday doesn't look too promising either. But each year, the snow and the ice storms in the winter, and then the thunder and the wind storms in the spring, and even in the summer, are happening more and more frequently with more and more serious conditions. When was the last time that you can say you remember the majority of the schools in Kentucky being closed for more than 2 weeks straight? And why? And think over that same time period of all the record-breaking highs and low temperatures happening on a more consistent pattern. Wildfires, flash floods from California to the Carolinas, breaking record tornadoes and hurricanes, and each year getting more frequent and more devastating. And again, why? Well, there is a reason. God is speaking to this nation and all around the world when you consider the massive earthquakes and the tsunamis that have killed thousands and thousands of people. Now throw in the droughts. God is trying to get our attention. And the following verses are from Job 36 and 37, and they make it very clear. Look, God is greater than we can understand. His years cannot be counted. He draws up water vapor and then distills it into rain. The rain pours down from the clouds and everyone benefits. But who can understand the spreading of the clouds and the thunder that rolls forth from heaven? And see how he spreads the lightning around him and how it lights up the depths of the sea? And by these mighty acts he nourishes the people, giving them food in abundance. He fills his hands with lightning bolts, and he hurls each at its target. And the thunder announces his presence, and the storm announces his indignant anger. Did you catch that? But listen carefully to the thunder of God's voice as it rolls from his mouth. It rolls across the heavens, and his lightning flashes in every direction. And then comes the roaring of the thunder and the tremendous voice of his majesty. He does not restrain it when he speaks. His voice is glorious in the thunder, and we can't even imagine the greatness of his power. He directs the snow to fall on the earth, and he tells the rain to pour down, and then everyone stops working so they can watch his power. Has it stopped you this week? Last week? What about the banks, the schools, and countless businesses? Verse 8 goes on and says, the wild animals take cover and they stay inside their dens. And the stormy wind comes from its chambers, and the driving winds bring the cold. And God's breath sends the ice, freezing wide expanses of water, and he loads the clouds with moisture, and they flash with his lightning, and the clouds churn about at his direction, and they do whatever he commands throughout the earth. He makes these things happen either to punish people or to show his unfailing love. That's Scripture. But the question is God punishing us, or is he showing us his love? Or maybe both. But then God asked Job a question. Do you know how God controls the storm and causes the lightning to flash from the clouds? Do you understand how he moves the clouds with wonderful perfection and skill? And when you're sweltering in your clothes and the south wind dies down and everything is still, and then he makes the sky reflect the heat like a bronze mirror, can you do that? And it isn't like God has to make up a bunch of snow or hail every time there's a storm, because he already has a vast supply. Job 35:7 says, He who makes the clouds rise at the end of the earth, who makes lightnings for the rain and brings forth the wind from his storehouses. Job 38:22 says, Have you visited the storehouses, plural, of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail, plural? Without question, God is always prepared. And Matthew 16:2-3, Jesus replied, Oh, you know the saying, a red sky at night means fair weather tomorrow, but a red sky in the morning means foul weather all day. You know how to interpret the weather and the signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times. And as we continue our sermon series on the end times this week, I encourage you to come and be part of that. But do you know what? Today's meteorologists don't predict the weather. They interpret the weather, just like Jesus said. Because if they could predict the weather, they would give us all the exact same weather conditions, temperatures, precipitation every day, even weeks and months ahead, if they could predict. And with all of today's technology and with all the data analyzed and compared and studied and stored, still, scientists have only learned a minute fraction of the how and even less of the why. Case in point, the past week's snowstorm sweeping across the nation, meteorologists kept chasing their tails trying to pin down the how much and the where it would hit, with absolutely no hint to the reason why. And believe me, there is most certainly a why. John 3:8 says, The wind blows where it pleases. You hear its sound, but you don't know where it comes from or where it's going, because weather is unpredictable. And if you do know why, Job 36 verses 32-3 says, He fills his hands with lightning bolts, and he hurls them at his target. He has a particular spot, a place that he intends to strike, to hit, and to affect. Verse 33 says, And the thunder announces his presence, and the storm announces his indignant anger, and he makes his presence known. Did he get your attention this past couple of weeks? Did he make you feel small and insignificant? Job 37:7 says, Then everyone stops working so they can watch his power. Did the snow stop you from working? And look at how many businesses were closed, how many schools were closed, how many banks were closed, government offices closed down. But did it stop man's work? Did God get your attention in the midst of the storm? I mean, were you worried about losing power because of the freezing rain and the ice? Were you worried that a tree limb might fall on your house or on your car? Did you stop to pray that God would protect your home and your belongings? That you wouldn't lose electricity, or for protection for travel for yourself or for family members? Did he get your attention? Yes, he did. Even if you weren't aware it was him, he stopped us all in our tracks. Psalms 47:16-17 says, Both day and night belong to you. You made the starlight and the sun. You set the boundaries of the earth, and you made both the summer and the winter. God clearly controls the sun and the moon and the seasons in their appointed time. And the proximity to the earth and the sun and the moon affect the temperatures. And temperatures are crucial for each season's for purposes. Certainly God sustains the earth, and he gives promise to provide the proper conditions of weather, to provide food and provisions. And this promotes in the believer's heart a hope and a security. Oh, but what happens when it doesn't rain? And why does that happen? Well, let's answer that question with a question. Do we ever forget God? Do we ever become proud and take credit for bountiful harvest? And without question, God uses the weather to get our attention and to remind us of our need for Him, and He will get our attention. But here's one fact that we all need to know. God does use the weather to punish people. And here are some scriptural examples. 1 Kings 8:35, Solomon praying says, if the skies are shut up and there's no rain because people have sinned against you, and if they pray toward the temple and acknowledge your name and turn from their sins because you've punished them. And God did this with Israel when they worshipped other gods. Jeremiah 14:22 says, can any of the worthless foreign gods send rain? Does it fall from the sky by itself? No, you are the one, O Lord our God. Only you can do such things, so we will wait for you to help us. And remember that phrase I told you a few minutes ago about the thunder announces His presence and the storm announces His indignant anger? Yes, God uses the weather, not always to send a storm, but to withhold the rain to punish. 2 Samuel 22:1 says, there was a famine during David's reign that lasted for 3 years. So David asked the Lord about it, and the Lord said, this famine has come because Saul and his family are guilty of murdering the Gibeonites, something that God specifically told him not to do. But we need to remember, too, that God sent prophet after prophet to Israel to warn them of their sinful condition and God's disapproval and warning of His judgment. And God followed through them by sending Babylon to conquer Jerusalem. Were they all guilty of idol worship? Certainly not. I mean, how about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the other 10,000 that were taken into exile? They still paid the price for what the rest of the nation had done. The innocent were affected right alongside the guilty. So it makes me wonder about America. And how can we forget God destroying the earth and all of its inhabitants and every living creature by the flood in Genesis 7:12? But Noah, he saved along with his family in the ark. God had Noah preach to those people for 100 years while building the ark. And you know the attraction of that ark being built got tons of interest and generated countless questions. And God gave them an opportunity, but they turned a deaf ear, as they did in all the other biblical examples. But remember, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And without question, this storm has been maddening and difficult on all of us. But God is trying to get our attention. He has shut down our highways, our subdivision streets, and our back roads. He's emptied out the grocery stores, brought down power lines, underground water lines are bursting. Businesses after business are closed and not having enough sales and business transactions to meet the financial requirements to stay afloat, and many losing a great deal of income. Our city and county road departments are under a barrage of criticisms for failing to keep up with the precipitation and then sitting idly by on the days when they could have spent on the secondary roads, leaving the people stranded in their homes. And all of this is causing anxiety and worry, cabin fever, loneliness, and yes, even depression. And a number of you have expressed these sentiments to me. And there has not been a single one of us that has not experienced at least one of these emotions and having passing to a near crippling toll on us. Now, is God getting our attention? Is He reminding us of our need of interaction with Him? Is He reminding us of our need of interaction with each other? Is He reminding us of Hebrews 10:25? And let us not neglect meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of His return is drawing near. And we will be continuing the series on the end times this week and into the coming weeks. So don't miss out on the important information and encouragement that we will receive from this study. But I know that a number of you have been seriously impacted by the canceled services. And I pray that this little time out that God has given us a remotivation into regular attendance. Let me also encourage you to make a priority to attend our Wednesday night Bible studies on the book of Genesis, starting again this Wednesday night at 6:30. You'll hear and be introduced to information you've never heard before and reminded of some facts and truths that you may have forgotten. But this study promises, if nothing else, to be provoking and interesting. But please understand that I am not promoting my opinion here. I'm giving you example after example and scripture after scripture. Understand too that I did not say this. God himself said it. And it is, and he is following through, because Isaiah 55:11 says, "So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it will accomplish exactly what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it." And it will. Has he gotten your attention? Well, church, as we move forward into the last days, the behavior of the masses is becoming more vile and more hateful. And God is using the weather to not only bless the believers and to keep them in constant remembrance of him, but he's using the weather to punish and to destroy, to gain the attention of those that have turned their backs on him, as did the Israelites when they turned to idol worship, forgetting Jehovah God, who then led them out of the bondage of slavery. He turned around and blessed them and made of them a mighty nation. Is that what's happening in America today? If so, then you better be prepared. And as Stephen said earlier this week, California, Kentucky, we've got fire and ice going on right in front of us. So what is going on with the weather? When the March winds begin to blow and the April showers bring the flowers, and God blesses us with rain in the growing seasons, know that each subtle shift of the weather is a whisper from God saying, "Remember me? I love you." Have a great day. See you Sunday.